Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Stargirl Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 8 for this season, otherwise entitled Summer School Chapter 8. But of course, spoiler alert if you've not watched the episode, because some big stuff happens in this episode for a couple of different characters, so yeah, go away if you've not watched the episode. But if you have watched it, be sure to let me know your various opinions in the comment section down below. What did you love? What did you hate? What were your favourite moments from the episode? And just your overall rating for the episode, I guess, and what you think might be coming next. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you enjoyed the episode, want to drop a like on this video to show support and excitement and rating. So last episode was a big episode for Yolanda or Wildcat, an episode pretty much 90% focused on her, like more focused on what the characters for this episode are, but she was facing the fallout from the end of last season, from the loss of Henry King Jr. and also the killing of Brainwave that she did. So a lot of just various just traumatic things happen, and by the end of the episode, she drops being Wildcat and pretty much goes radio silent to everyone. It's not like she's just dropping Wildcat, it's almost like she's just dropped Courtney and the other JSA members from her life completely and gone back into her shell. And we can assume that her mother is pretty much taking control of her life again. So we don't get anything with Yolanda actually on screen this episode. So it will be interesting to see when she comes back into play. But in regards to this episode, it felt very similar to the Rick-focused episode from last season. And this episode also focused on Beth as well, just like that episode last season, which I think was episode 5, I think. Now, I was surprised this episode dealt with race issues through Beth, though it added to the story that went on, as well as the future of Beth as a character and as Dr. Mid-Nite. So it was a bit jarring at first just because it came out of nowhere, but the context to how it happened I thought worked really well and definitely allowed Beth to push through that moment. But we'll talk about it specifically when we get to that point of the episode. But in regards to the episode, let's break it down. So we pick up with this random white car heading out to Rick Tyler's house, and it's like, hey, did Rick's uncle get a new car? Or was Rick traded in the yellow car that he had? And we see it's actually the teacher, Miss Woods, I think her name is, from school, that accused Rick of cheating early in the season and was potentially going to push Rick to go to summer school and stuff like that. Now, she has come out to Rick's house apparently to apologize to Rick for all of that, but she's actually come to Rick to bring up the topic of college and a brighter future for Rick. But of course, this is interrupted by his ass of an uncle who just storms out and literally throws Rick's dreams or potential dreams into the wind. So yeah, some bad blood already there and some potential setup for what happens at the end of the episode. Now Rick heads out into the woods, which we've seen him doing, previously this season, but he heads out into the woods to let out some frustration and anger, and he's just sick and tired of the world dealing him like one of the worst hands possible. Like he's giving all he can, but pretty much getting nothing in return. It just feels like he gets slapped from the earth or from the world or from wherever it is, no matter what he does. But this is all of a sudden when he is actually approached by Grundy, who makes his way out of hiding from the woods. And we've seen early in the season, he's been bringing food, leaving it there, coming back and seeing empty packaging and stuff. So it seems that he hasn't actually been interacting with Grundy, in this way, but he's still been interacting by leaving the food and stuff. Now, Rick is sitting there with Grundy, giving, I think it was like apples to Grundy, telling the story about the dog he took from his uncle to give him a better life in another town, because his uncle was sort of raising him to be a fight dog. And he's hoping to use that, analogy or that example as a backing for Grundy and hoping he can change from what the Injustice Society set him up to be, which is pretty much a fight dog. And it seems Grundy is open to that, and it's very possible, and you can see that the relationship between him and Rick is, it's not evil. Like, it's definitely a friendly relationship, with Grundy even offering Rick an apple, even though they were Rick's apples to begin with. Anyway, I guess the gesture is nice. But we do get to, pick up from where Courtney was last episode. Obviously, all the stuff with Yolanda is not helping her. She's not only just lost a teammate, but she's also lost her best friend. So Courtney is still feeling bad for what happened with Yolanda last episode. With this, pretty much being doubled down on when the Wildcat suit is left on her doorstep. Whether it was by Yolanda or not, who knows? Could have been her mother. I'd assume it was just Yolanda. But this brings up the question, is Yolanda truly done? Is she truly done as Wildcat? Because Stargirl's been one of those shows that just sort of surprises you. You can just assume, no, she'll be back. She's Wildcat. She has to come back. But you never know. Maybe she might completely drop it. I don't think she will. I think she will come back, but the question still has to be asked. Now, the issues with the cosmic staff make all this negative JSA stuff just sort of stack up on top of each other. So nothing's really going that great for Courtney. But really, with most of the JSA, nothing's going really well. And this is when we actually get to see or meet up with Beth for this episode. Now, Beth is still trying to get all the Dr. Mid-Nite stuff working properly and getting in contact, with Charles McNider, the original Dr. Mid-Nite. And Dr. Charles McNider is saying that he's in the Shadowlands, but that keeps getting cut off by static interference. So Beth is still yet to hear the words Shadowlands. I wonder now, because of what happened at the end of the episode, there's a proper connection and she'll be able to dive deeper into that. But I don't think Beth's ever actually heard the word Shadowlands. It keeps getting cut off. But we know he's saying Shadowlands, but for Beth, it seems it's getting cut off all the time. But anyway, we'll see what happens in future episodes. But that contact between Beth and Dr. McNider is possible between the two due to the barrier between the real world and the Shadowlands being breached or broken. But he says he can't talk too long, otherwise some others will see him. So it makes you wonder and just question, well, who are the others? So are these other people stuck in the Shadowlands? Are these potential villains that were put in there? I'm not too sure. I have to wait and see. But regardless of this, Eclipso is watching, and this continues on from the end of last episode where we saw the young Bruce Gordon not sucking on a lollipop, chewing on a goddamn lollipop in the creepiest way possible, watching, I guess, Beth's house while Beth was sleeping. Now, Beth does sit down with her parents, who give her some lunch. It actually looked pretty tasty to begin with, not going to lie. But they begin to talk about the issues going around, the household, such as the divorce mainly. But they start to say that, like, Beth was the reason they grew apart. And this is when things start to get even weirder and darker and eerier. And Beth starts to see maggots in her food. So it makes you wonder, like, what was real and what was brought about by Eclipso. We learned that at the end of the episode. But at that time, I was like, I have no idea what's real or fake. Like, I honestly have no idea what's real or fake. But cutting back to Rick for a second, there is a bear hunt announced, not just like, a poster on a wall or something. It's announced on the radio throughout Blue Valley, and this bear hunt's going on due to multiple sightings in the woods. And Rick calls in both Pat and Courtney to help out with the protection of Grundy, but also potentially the protection of the people, hunting this supposed bear in the woods. However, we see that a hunter has been attacked and that a young girl is apparently missing from like a horse station, I think they said. So now panic stations are even higher for Rick and, just potentially what's going on with Grundy. And this is not really helped when Rick hears gunfire and Grundy's cries, only to find Grundy with blood all over his hands next to some water and a dead girl lying in the water. Now, I knew straight away, I saw it as like, well, that's Rebecca McNider. I knew it was Rebecca McNider as soon as I saw it. Had the dress, same hairstyle and stuff. Didn't look like a girl that would dress like that in modern day, even a young girl and stuff like that. So I knew it was Rebecca McNider. But Rick chases after Grundy with Pat and Courtney starting to. However, Pat stops to look at the girl in the water, and he can actually see that's Rebecca McNider. And he's sort of like, you can see Pat is like definitely shook up. He's not shook up necessarily because it's a dead little girl, which would shake him up anyway, but he knows it's Rebecca McNider. He has met Rebecca in the past. But she opens her eyes in a very creepy way and vanishes. So talk about a jump scare. Like, it scared me. And I was sort of expecting it as well, but it just happened so quickly with the music. It got me. But you can just, I think even Courtney mentions Eclipso. So Eclipso's reign on the town is getting bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. It's, man, I don't know how the JSA is going to solve this. But Rick eventually catches up to, Grundy as the fireworks for 4th of July go off in the background. So we have this fight going off with all those fireworks going on. And he's bashing Grundy to a pulp. And he's pretty much on the brink of death. And Rick's pretty much thinking about doing the final move. But Courtney shoots him away with the cosmic stuff, which only has like a handful, maybe like 2 or 3 good blasts in it. And we actually learn he actually wasn't fighting Grundy. And when Pat said that, or Courtney said that, one of the two, I was like, oh no, is he actually bashing who I think he is? And he's actually bashing the life out of his uncle. Now, his uncle didn't die, which is good for Rick, but man, he got him close there. So nothing is going right for the JSA. And this is just added on to when Rick, like through the frustration, also smashes his hourglass. So we've had Yolanda give up the Wildcat persona, and now Rick smashes the hourglass. So, I mean, what the hell? What happens next? But we do get a bit of, I want to say some potential promise put forward in regards to dealing with Eclipso. And it looked like it was going down a really bad route at first, but, someone pulls through with a bit of I wouldn't say a major W at the moment, but definitely a minor W. And this is when we have Beth going to Courtney's house. She's looking for Courtney or Pat or just anyone really, but they aren't there. But there is someone there. A young Bruce Gordon is, which is probably the one person I wouldn't want to see in an empty house, to be completely honest. Very creepy. But he starts to accuse Beth of being a liar and a stealer with like racist remarks added in as well, which definitely surprised me, as I said earlier in the video, with him actually having the Dr. Midnight goggles on him. So of course, like Beth is gonna want them back and go after him. And this scene kept getting creepier and creepier, especially with the music and the little kid's acting. And so he does it so well. And Beth is somewhat quick to figure out that Bruce is Eclipso in disguise. You know, we know Beth is smart. She should be able to, it's not, well, I'm saying she should, but it's not surprising that she'd figured it out fairly quickly. Now, Beth gets locked in Courtney's closet and actually ends up breaking out in front of JSA members Starman, Hourman, and Wildcat. Now, we know they're in next week's episode, the OGs, along with some other JSA members as well. So I'm assuming they just filmed that when they arrived in town to do those scenes for next episode. But they are saying that she doesn't belong there, and this goes even further with Bruce Gordon bringing up the racist remarks towards Beth as well. Like they just put it out there, and I thought, but it does work. But Eclipso also goes on to call out Beth's insecurities, but this also ends up with Beth calling Eclipso out, and he shows himself. So we're not dealing with young Bruce Gordon. It's actually Eclipso, and I mean, in a dark environment, I don't know, maybe I would prefer the young Bruce Gordon over Eclipso being there, but it scared me when he popped out, even though I knew it was coming. Just because of the way he popped out, he went like, whoa, like he just came out and tried to be scary. But yeah, Eclipso continues to call out Beth's lack of destiny, unlike Rick and Yolanda, trying to drag Beth deeper and deeper into her worst fears. But Beth is strong enough to snap out of it, and we see she was actually in her living room the entire time. She never left or experienced any of those bad things that actually happened. So she takes the first minor W against Eclipso this season, with Dr. Mid-Nite telling her not to take off the goggles. Keep them on, and she will see through whatever Eclipso tries to do to her, with Beth, according to the JSA database at the very least, officially becoming the new Dr. Mid-Nite. And she has one hell of an upper hand now. And even things with her parents seem to be getting back, or at least there's some sort of mend going on there. So even though it started off like really, really bleak for Beth, she came out a better person and just, with just an upper hand, and things seem a bit brighter in her life based off the end of this episode. So I'm intrigued to see how pivotal Beth is this season based off what happens in this episode, because she's got this thing that Eclipso can't really control too much. So unless Eclipso gets someone else to do it to her, he can't do it directly to Beth. So I'm intrigued to see where it goes. But unfortunately, even though Beth has come away with a bit of a W this episode, Rick is pretty much handed a pretty big L. Now, Rick is taken away by the police, and his uncle is sent to hospital. And we see that Grundy is actually sad to see Rick taken away. He's hiding behind, I think it was one of the silos in the back, and he calls Rick a friend. So Grundy wasn't being imagined by Rick. It wasn't something being brought about by Eclipso like we'd seen with other people, like Beth and even Yolanda last episode. Oh, I don't know. Was Yolanda last episode Eclipso? It's still up in the air whether that was Eclipso or not. We might find out soon. But whether anyone else thinks Grundy is actually there is another question. It makes you wonder whether he will make himself known so everyone knows that Rick wasn't just imagining Grundy, or if that's for later to happen. We'll wait and see, but at least we know as the audience that Grundy was real. Even though we should have assumed that when all the chicken and pizza was being eaten. I mean, unless it was like some random thing in the woods anyway. But to finish off the episode, we do have Barbara and Mike talking about the events of, what's just happened in this episode and just, what's just gone by, reassuring each other that things will work themselves out, hopefully, and they need to be as supportive as they can. But we see that things are getting a bit icy outside. Stuff is frosting up. And is this due to Eclipso making the weather even worse, or is someone doing this with their powers? Is it Cameron Marquand, or is there some Jordan Marquand related stuff going on next episode? I'm not too sure, but we know the next episode is the Jay Garrick episode with the JSA, so maybe that's for the episode after that, but I'm intrigued. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a really strong episode for both. Well, specifically Beth as a character, but also it makes you wonder where Rick goes, because he's destroyed the hourglass. So it's even further than the Yolanda situation. The Yolanda just gave up Wildcat, but there's no destruction of a pivotal piece of being that superhero. So I know where Rick goes when we pick up with him, but very good episode in regards to the progression of Beth and her completely adopting and not feeling like an outsider like was being brought up. So great episode for Beth. And yeah, I'm just intrigued to see what happens next with all this Eclipso stuff, because we only got 5 episodes left for this season. So stuff is definitely heating up or icing up, depending if you want to take the end of that episode as a bad sign going forward. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. Good, drop a like on it, show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on the episode, what you love from the episode, general thoughts, everything like that, theories going forward. Always curious to read them. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.